It's 7 o'clock in Southern California and time for the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable for September 14th, 2017. This is Mike in 6HKH, your net control. This roundtable is held every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 0200 UTC, on XRF 002 Alpha and a constellation of X reflectors, including XRF 310A, XRF 555A, and XLX212 Alpha. And I need to add to that, and I should do that right now, that we also have a XLX313, which we'll talk about in a while, which is a DMR and D-Star X reflector. So give me a moment to correct this here on the script, because we don't want to leave XLX313. And also there's another one that we'll talk about as well that will be of interest to some people that has been added to the constellation. This is a technical net dedicated to D-Star and Open Digital Systems. It's a group effort, which means that we expect stations to participate. So, to join a discussion, start a topic, or ask a question, key up when I call for stations. Just remember, please do not quick key or tailgate. Neither activity works well on digital systems. I will pause regularly to let you key up, and I ask that participating stations do the same. Now, we don't take formal check-ins or do a roll call to give us more time to talk D-Star. Net Control is online at roundtable.tech, T-E-C-H. That's roundtable, all one word, .tech. Just type it into the address field of your favorite browser, and it will take you to the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable forum board, where there you'll find a real-time chat feature called Shoutbox that you can use to contact me, as well as to post information relevant to the topic at hand, such as links and quick notes. And you might note that the Shoutbox, if you're taking a look at the Roundtable forum board, started earlier this week with postings and some questions and answers and some information, and has been updated as 4 hours ago, apparently, and you're welcome to peruse that. Some of those we'll be going through tonight. Anyway, stations that have a web address or a document that can be located publicly with a URL, to post that address or URL in conjunction with their presentation in the shop. Well, we had a double. I just wanted to pause a moment to let that. Hey, that's Robin. Did the California fall off and fell into the ocean? Or am I All right, I think we're in good order. So tonight, I want to talk a bit about routing versus linking. And for those new to D-Star, sometimes this gets confused, and even those of us who discuss digital communication mislabel what is happening using the phrase routing instead of linking and vice versa. And it's really very basic. When you enter the call sign of the station you want to contact in your radio, that is a directed call to a specific ham. That technique is call sign routing or routing. The D-Star system, the trust server, keeps track of stations that have keyed up and correctly routes your transmission to the last known location of the station you're wishing to reach. Call sign routing or routing can be thought of as much like how a cell phone operates. As you travel around, the cell system kind of knows where you are and directs calls from incoming calls to the cell tower nearest to your location. And that's a very similar way of how D-Star operates in routing. So it's kind of point to point, but there's a lot more to it. And we've talked about how routing works, whether it's node routing or routing to a specific ham, such as call sign routing. It's largely disfavored, and in many linked systems, call sign routing is prohibited. It can cause all kinds of trouble. But we're not here to talk about trouble. We're here to talk about the difference. Now, linking is possible and occurs when users initiate a link between two repeater modules that reside on different gateways, or between a repeater module or gateway and a reflector module. So that once a link has been established, everyone that's on the two linked repeater modules or on all users on a linked reflector module with a repeater module can hear and talk to each other without changing any of their information, such as the destination call sign routing that's required for, or the call sign setting with the other station or the repeater node that's required for routing. So routing is one thing. Linking is another. Linking is good. Routing is evil. And that's 60 seconds of D-Star Basics. And I want to give credit, as I always do, to some of the material for tonight's 60 seconds. Comes from the Nifty Guide. Let me get it. Hang on. The book hit the floor. Let's try this again. Nifty Easy Guide to D-Star Operation by N6FN. It's probably the Bible for D-Star. And hopefully it's the 4th edition coming out pretty soon. It's an excellent book. Now, if anyone has any quibbles with 60 Seconds of D-Star Basics, or if you have any questions you wish to add to it, if you think I misspoke or I mischaracterized something, besides probably getting into a fist fight with Bernie, the author of the book, feel free to do so, because I want to get out the correct information. And as is the case with the discussions we have tonight, if you believe that somebody has misspoken, didn't quite get it right, or if you have something to fill in or you want to help out with the discussion, feel free to do so, because nobody takes offense, at least not on the air. And frankly, if I thought you were an offended type person, we probably wouldn't let you participate. Of course, I don't think we have anybody like that participate in the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable. We don't want to get out guesses. We want to get out facts. So think nothing of it if you want to correct what you've heard, especially for new people new to D-Star and digital systems who are looking for correct and accurate information. So, next up, the announcements, stations with announcements for tonight's roundtable. Please be up.
W-E-5-E-K-U-E
And we say hello to Don, WB5EKU. Thanks for being first up on tonight's net. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Mike, and everyone on the net. WB5EKU. Announcement is, I don't know if everybody's aware of it, but HamCon 2017, which is the ARL Southwestern Division Convention, is being held this weekend. As a matter of fact, it starts tomorrow, I think at noon tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's held at the Torrance Marriott in Redondo Beach. I don't know why they call it the Torrance. Oh, it's the Redondo Beach Hotel in Torrance. Now, the Torrance Marriott Hotel in Torrance, California, 3635 Fashion Way in Torrance. There are a lot of talks. There's a bunch of exhibits. They have a bunch of commercial guys. I don't know if all the radio manufacturers are going to be there, but a lot of the radio manufacturers and quite a few third-party guys and people are going to be there. So it's very interesting. I posted on the shout box a link to the URL so you can go search for yourself. And hope a lot of people can make it. It's a nice convention. I have one more thing, Mike. Let me reset. WB5EKU. I would like to personally thank Bob W6KD, John K6KD, Luke, and John Luke in Luxembourg for all the heavy hitting that they've been doing. If it wasn't for Luke and John Luke, transcoding would not be taking place. And I really, for one, appreciate the work they've done. Because I have a multi-mode repeater covering the Los Angeles area, and being multi-mode, it's digitally advanced, but with 4K transcoding, it is now definitely the most advanced digital system in Southern California, without question, without qualification. It's an open system. Anyway, guys, Luke, John Luke, Bob, and John, you guys all have a tremendous amount of time and money invested in this, and I, for one, want to thank you all. N6HKH, WB5EKU, Granada Hills.
All right, Don, appreciate it. Well, of course, it's always best said with flowers, and that things of substance will always be appreciated more so than thanks in the air. But I'm glad you did that, and it's appropriate. So, HamCon, it's actually a ARL Southwestern Division convention. So it's not just a little old thing. It's certainly not as big as the one up in Northern California, and then, well, you know, there's several big ones out there. Let me just look. Okay, it says the Torrance Marriott Hotel. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but nothing begins until Friday afternoon. It's so odd the way they set this up. But thank you, Don, for posting the link to the website. The forums are called Tech Talks at this particular convention. If there's a speaker listening, someone that's hosting or speaking or presenting, that is, a Tech Talk who would like to tout their presentation and wish to do so now, please key up. Well, similarly, if you're going to be there and you've got a really nifty flea market booth or tent or table or cardboard that you'd like to draw people's attention to that may be visiting, you're welcome to do that as well. In the meantime, stations with announcements, please key up. All right, nothing seen or heard. No other announcements were brought to my attention, so there may not be any more announcements. Well, let's take a look at the Roundtable Forum board because there's a lot going there. We're not going to reread what you can read for yourself, but there are some interesting posts that should still be present. I don't think they've scrolled off yet, but at the top of the post is a post by VK4TUX and W4WWN, and if you might remember from last Thursday, Will W4WWM was thinking about getting an ICOM 4100 and was concerned about its use with QuadNet and StarNet, and VK4TUX answered that for him. And it's not so much that, although we appreciate that post and it's helpful to those that have similar questions, but Will W4WWN's decision to not buy a ICOM 4100 is one of the reasons for the Kingston Digital pursuing 4K transcoding. And it's pointed out here because you have a new ICOM radio with a high price, the same mode basically. It has unusable features, frankly, especially fault line routing. And there doesn't seem to be many improvements planned by ICOM to its D-Star radios in the future. On the other hand, DMR, which apparently may be thinking of investing, has a low price, tons of features, is constantly being improved as to the equipment, and it's the go-to alternative, it seems, for many who want to be on DMR and D-Star, but in the open digital system. So with that kind of thinking that, let's go for the better and that would cost less, 4K transcoding allows those users on DMR to participate with us here on the Constellation. So it's pretty cool. I just found that interesting. Nobody else may. Also, K6KD posted a couple of articles about one with a link and one not that is pretty informative. If you've been thinking about network performance metrics, this particular document, loss, latency, and speed, is well written, and it's worth reading. And we're hopefully going to get into this as a topic a little bit with some help as I time out, which, that's not supposed to happen. So, let's see. And there are some other Shoutbox posts, and we're going to skip right over them and move on to some other things that have been posted. I wanted to bring to your attention that N7TAE posted an interesting article concerning his IRC DDV D-Star solution that involves the rewrite of KI4L KLF's software. And you can find that in the general roundtable discussion category under references and links. And the thread is G2_IRCDDB. It was posted today, and it's well worth a read. Let me see if N7TAE is with us. I haven't scanned the desktop, but if so, and you would like to make any comments regarding what you posted, Tom, this would be a good time to do so. I understand if you're not around. The N7TAE, though, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm calling in from the Tucson repeater, which is a few miles from my house. Thanks for mentioning my post. It's software that I've been working on for a little while now, several years, and just slowly trying to improve it and make it better and better with each release. So you can take a look at there's lots of information inside the inside the distribution, when you download it from GitHub, there's, I think, 3 different fairly long detailed files that will go through all the details, but you really don't have to know too much about setting it up. Almost everything you need to know is in the README file. Anyway, if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to respond. You can reach me at my call sign N7TAE@ARRL.net if you have any questions. Thanks for mentioning me. Back to Net Control, this is N7TAE.
Not a problem. We appreciate the post. It's well written and informative, and it's worthy of everybody's read. So just look for the in the general discussions category, and you'll find the recent post. If you sign up for the Roundtable Forum Board, you'll get a listing of the most recent posts, which will help you find what's new and what isn't. And you'll find N7TAE's post, and we're glad he did that. I enjoyed reading it. Hope others will too. So, any follow-up to last week's discussion? We paused at this time to let stations that had discussions last Thursday and wanted to add to them, or if you listened to a particular discussion on a recording and wanted to add your 2 cents to what you heard, this would be the time to do it. So, if you want to comment or follow up, correct, add to, or otherwise further explain something we talked about last Thursday, please be up next. All right, well, nobody's fire got lit over things like that, and that would not be unusual. So, have there been any ham fairs or hamventions that have come and gone that you attended that you'd like to give a quick report on or discuss something you saw that you just couldn't keep to yourself? We'll take you now. Please be up. No response. Any PowerPoint presentations or YouTube videos that we should watch you'd like to bring to our attention that hasn't already been posted on the shout box? Tell us verbally, please, Keith. Well, new gear or devices that we should be discussing. There's a lot that was talked about at the Tokyo Ham Fair, and many manufacturers have been threatening to produce new stuff. And if you've stumbled upon something that is forthcoming, maybe it's only in concept, but we should keep our eye on it. Or if you're able to purchase something that was, let's say, a recent announcement, perhaps as recent as Dayton, that you'd like to comment on and have other people spend their money in a good or bad manner on it, please key up and let us know. Well, it seems like everybody's up to speed on everything, so that's a good thing. And let me call for stations that have something that they want to bring to the net. I got a note that there may be a couple stations that can't stay long at all that wanted to bring something to our attention. I'm not sure exactly who that is because it didn't include call signs or names, but there was anyway. Anything before we get into topics, we're going to start out with 4K transcoding, but is there somebody with something for the roundtable that wants to present that before we get too carried away? We'll take you now, please be up. Well, that was probably kind of a phantom thing anyway. Well, as you have probably found by either listening to the Constellation or have read even a portion of the Roundtable Forum Board's posts, the 4K transcoding has been unleashed on the constellation of X reflectors, and the Kings of Digital system is pleased to let everybody know that we've connected it to the constellation, and that stations on DMR or hotspots connected to XLX313 can participate in the roundtable and vice versa. Frankly, I've been watching and listening most of today and yesterday, and stations have been pounding in on DMR. You really can't tell the difference, and the call signs come through and vice versa. So there's a lot that has happened, and, you know, the big thing, of course, is flipping the switch and providing 4K transcoding for everyone to use. So ordinarily, I would call on John, A6KD, to fill us in on what's going on, but he has laryngitis, and I got to tell you, it's serious. I would not call on him to key up and talk because everybody would go running. But I thought I'd bug W6KD Bob to just give us a quick overview of what's been patched, what to expect, and then I'll follow up with where to go to find out how to do it yourself, and if you need help, where to go for that as well. So, Bob, W6KD, do you mind taking this on and in John's absence and explaining 4K transcoding and where it sits within the constellation? W6KD, go ahead.
Hey, good evening, Mike and Lynette. I just straggled in here a few minutes ago, so hopefully you haven't talked about any of this already, in which case you're going to get a repeat performance because I wasn't on for about the first 15 minutes or so of the net. We've been working on a hardware-based transcoding solution for DMR to D-Star and D-Star to DMR for a bit now. The real heavy lifting was done by Luke and John Luke, whose call signs escaped me, LX1JL and I can't remember. Anyway, two Luxembourg hams that are the authors of the XLX software. And a couple weeks ago, they released the second major version, the second major release, version 2 of XLX-D, which is the software that underlies the XLX reflectors. And included in XLX version 2 is the ability now to operate both D-Star and DMR on the reflector. Regardless of whether there's a transcoder or not, if you have a version 2 XLX reflector, and in the Kings of Digital complex, we have two right now. We have XLX313, which is where the transcoder is connected. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then XLX357 has been around for a while, but it was upgraded to version 2, moved to the Amazon cloud, and it's available as well. And I'm going to reset and change hands. So before we get into transcoding, if you have an XLX version 2 reflector, it's capable by itself, without any of the transcoding stuff, of conducting D-Star to D-Star and also DMR to DMR communications. We're going to talk at length, probably in subsequent roundtables, on how to get the various different multi-mode hotspots to connect to an XLX as a DMR master. And of course, for the D-Star guys, it works exactly like it always has. You've got, if you want to connect to XLX module A, you link to it just like you always have, either with a touch tone command or with XLX313AL to connect to the A module, the linking command. There's nothing new or unusual about how a D-Star operator uses XLX version 2 reflectors. But the big new development recently.
Well, it looks like we got a key up that bumped Bob out, so we're going to wait for W6KD to unkey, and then we'll pick him up.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay, well, I'm not sure where did I leave off here?
If you want to connect.
Okay, so for I'll retrace my steps. If I'm repeating myself, forgive me. But for DMR users, you can use any of the XLX version 2 reflectors, and we'll get into more detail later about how to make an XLX or DMR master server so that you can use that. And then for D-Star users, it works as it always has. The linking commands are the same, operation is the same. The only difference is if there's a DMR user on the other side of the AMBI divide, so to speak, and there's no transcoder, you will see a key up from the other station, but it'll be a dead carrier. There won't be any audio on it. That sort of lets you know that somebody is talking on the other side. So if you see that, it's not a malfunction. It's an indication that perhaps there's DMR traffic on the other side of the divide there. And so for that reason, it's probably best if you're going to conduct DMR to DMR or D-Star to D-Star communications, you do them in such a way that they're not coincident on the same channel. And I'm sure that some of the XLX operators will probably publish some guidance on where D-Star and DMR communications should be occurring. But the real interesting part, of course, is transcoding, and that is the ability to take a DMR stream and convert it to D-Star and send it out over the D-Star side and whatever it happens to be connected to. In this case, 313A is connected to the constellation. So if somebody is on the DMR side of that, they can hear and they can talk to the constellation right now. And of course, the opposite is true as well. As anything happening on the D-Star side is translated from D-Star from AMBI to AMBI plus 2, and then retransmitted out on the DMR side. So let me reset here real quick.
This is Kilo 8 Sierra Romeo Bravo.
Apparently, resetting means open season and other people to key up. Anyway,
Is the round table going to be on it this evening, or am I missing something? This is Kilo 8 Sierra Romeo Bravo.
Bob, stand by one. K8SRB, how copy N6HK?
not sure what's happened.
California, can you hear me? KSRB here.
All right, K8SRB is not listening to us. His volume's down, or he's got an odd connection, and he's going to key up. So, Bob, just hang on for a second and let me see if I can't hopefully get Stan, K8SRB, to hear me. He doesn't seem to be hearing anyone. He's just keying up and talking. It's almost like he's call sign routing. K8SRB, how copy? Unfortunately, he's not listening, and I think he stopped keying up. I'm sorry, Bob. This is unfortunate and unusual. W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, I've got myself. I can at least hear when it's happening now through feedback from another device. So anyway, the transcoding hardware is a 4-channel test. Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you fine. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I accidentally clicked the mute button on WinDV. That's why I couldn't hear myself. I saw the VU bar bouncing around, but didn't hear anything. Anyway, the hardware transcoder takes advantage of a quadruple vocoder. Four 3-channel vocoders in a box, and it actually takes the stream on one side, runs it through the vocoder to convert it into PCM audio, and then runs it right back out the other side to convert it into the other type of ambi. If you're coming in on D-Star, it comes out as DMR, and vice versa. If you're coming in on DMR, it comes out as D-Star. And the hardware transcoder can handle up to 6 streams simultaneously, one of which is assigned to the Constellation here. Another one is being used right now by the QuadNet guys on the XRF 757 and whatever's downstream from that. And then there's 4 as of yet. They're just locally assigned streams on the transcoder. But it provides a very high quality translation between one mode and the other, and it's a very quick, low latency changeover from one. You don't get any real noticeable lag. You get high quality audio. There have been a few attempts to do this in software that frankly don't work all that great. Some of them have been passable, but this is really the cat's meow from our perspective, is being able to run the stream through the actual, the same hardware that's being used in your radio to convert analog audio into digital, and vice versa. It's using the same hardware in a different sort of configuration to cross the divide between the two. And so if you're on, for example, XRF 313 Alpha or the Constellation right now, because 313 Alpha is connected to the rest of the Constellation that we're talking on. If you were to connect to 313 as a DMR master server, and then link to talk group 4001, which is the analog to the A module, you'd hear us and you'd be able to talk to us. And the software actually looks your DMR ID up in a database, and it'll insert your call sign into the DMR stream when you're going from DMR to D-Star. It's fairly sophisticated, and anyway, we're pretty happy with it. And let me reset one last time.
N1B.
And anyway, that's kind of where we stand with it. So we've got it up and running. It took some doing to iron some of the server specific and implementation specific details out, but we've got it up and running, and we're very happy with it. And it's available right now in the Constellation. And right now on 310 modules A through F. So we're encouraging folks to go over there and give it a try on both sides of the fence. And with that, we're back to the net, W6KD.
Yeah, and one DOT.
All right, Bob, thank you. I have N1DOT who is keyed up. Ken, do you have something for the net? If so, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Which DBSI device are you using, Bob? Is it a 30012 that you guys are using from DBSI?
W6KD, did you copy the question? And if so, go ahead.
I did copy, and yeah, we're using a USB 3012. It's like I said, it's a 4-module, four times triple channel vocoder unit that's accessible over a single USB interface.
Yeah, as I understand, there's 12 ambi chips in it. They're used in pairs. One for in, one for out, and that's why you get 6 channels, because I've looked at the 3012. Because we're thinking of doing the same thing for XLX813 at some point down in Florida. Right now he's offline because of the storm. But we're thinking of doing the same thing. Try to get working on a Raspberry Pi if we can. That'll be interesting. That'll be an interesting question. I've got a couple of other questions, but they relate to a D74, which I broke down and I've got on order.
All right, Ken. Well, if you want to ask anything further, key up as we move through the topics, or if you have any questions about 4K transcoding. I had K8SRB. I'm going to just check to see if he's got his volume up or is listening. K8SRB, go ahead.
Comment.
W6.
No response. I suspect that he decided because he couldn't hear us that there was no net and went away. W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, we muted K8SRB after the multiple key-ups on top of me. So if he wants to get back in, he just needs to post on the shout box that he's got it under control, and we'll be happy to unmute him.
All right, Bob, thanks for that, and that is appropriate. So, K8SRB in the blind at 6HKH, go to the D-Star Roundtable Forum board and post and let us know you've got the station fixed. If nothing else, the volume turned up and can hear us, and we'll be happy to unmute you. All right, now, most of the questions that have come through thus far by email or by offline post has been about, all right, where are the instructions? How does this thing work? Now, we're going to get into specific details on device by device as we progress through Thursday. But you might take a look at, and you should take a look at, a really comprehensive post put up by K6KD. If you scroll up to about midway of the landing page of the D-Star Roundtable Forum board, you'll see a discussion, or a category I meant, called Open Digital System File Sharing and How To. And then under that is a list of 3 boards. The third one shows OpenDMR XLX reflectors. And first, you'll find that all of the information concerning connecting to and using the 4K transcoding can be found at that xrefl.boards.net. But in addition, clicking through to that, you'll see how to connect to the XLX 313 from the open spot, connecting from MMDVM host and DMR gateway. And those 2 were recently posted by John and are fairly comprehensive. That will give you the information about how to, for example, connect to XLX Module A, which is the same as you connect to Talk Group 4001, and that is persistently linked to the Kings of Digital Reflector constellation, which, of course, includes all the other persistently linked reflectors. And there's a listing in there as far as which talk group goes where, although only 2 are presently occupied, I believe. And the connecting information and instructions are well worth your time to review before you start asking questions, unless you tried it and it just didn't work, and we might be able to field some questions tonight. In addition, in just a minute. I note that there is one question that showed up in the shout box concerning connecting by Pi-Star users, and there really isn't any need for connection instructions for Pi-Star users because that information is and I'm not sure where. Hey, Bob, can you help me out on this? It doesn't say why there's no connecting information available for Pi-Star users. Do you know why that hasn't been posted yet, or if there's a reason for not needing to post it? The W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm running Pi-Star with MMDVM, Mike.
I mean, it's not just, but it's a front end for MMDVM, and which incorporates now DMR Gateway, which is a not super late, but a reasonably recent development from Jonathan Naylor to sort of restructure the MMDVM modules so that so that each mode has its own module. You got IRC DDB gateway for D-Star, you got YSF gateway for Yaesu Fusion, and now you've got DMR gateway for the DMR side. And so any instructions specific to Pi-Star are going to have to come from the Pi-Star guys or from somebody supporting it. But in general, Pi-Star is a front end for MMDVM. So what works for MMDVM works for Pi-Star. As to why nobody's put specifics out there, I can't speak to that. I really can't lay the details out because I'm still using a very old version of MMDVM myself on my DV Mega hotspots. Most of my experimenting here lately has been with my open spot, so I'm actually behind the power curve here myself. So I'm not really the guy to answer those questions. John K6KD, when his throaty voice comes back, will be the guy to ask. So stay tuned in future roundtables for much more in-depth discussion on that, and also on how to use the XLXs with other multi-mode hotspot hardware and software. So back to the net, W680.
Yeah, N1DOT with MMDVM and Pi-Star.
Okay, yeah, Ken, I'll just key up and then wait because you ended up doubling with some stations. So I got you, M1DOT. Go ahead.
Okay, coming in via the D-Star mode, you'd link as normal because you'd be using IRC DDB gate. So you'd either would link with using your call or with the IRC DDB gateway using the call field of VTMF. Now, I'm running Pi-Star here. The whole concept behind Pi-Star is to make an easy to configure, easy to use image. That's easy for the end user to configure. The way it works is you set up MMDVM host and you set up DMR gateway. To talk to the XLX network, you got to get in and out on talk group 6. To link, you got to send a private call to 64. Let's say I want to link to module A. I would have to send a private call to 64,001. Okay, see, each network has its own prefix, Mike. Okay, Brandmeister, they use 9, talk group 9, with a prefix of 9, and then they use the 4XXXX for the reflectors. Okay, DMR Plus uses talk group 8, and then it uses a prefix for private call of 8, plus 4 plus XXX for the module of the reflector. Now, when you do XLX, you got to predetermine which XLX reflector you want DMR gateway to connect to at this time. That's going to change in the near future because you'll be able to select DMR XLX masters on the fly from your radio. But right now, at this time, you can only have one connected at a time, and you got to go change it for configuration. But to unlink, you send a private call to 64,000. To link to module A, you send a private call to 64,001. And you'll get voice back saying linked to 4001. And that Brandmeister style overmodulated voice. Because I'm running it here with DMR gateway. I could just as well pick up the other radio, come in on IRC DDB gateway. Because I got a DL1X running in full duplex with MMDVM host right now, running with the Pi-Star image.
All right, Ken, appreciate it. And I just got a note here that the Pi-Star actually is already configured. And also there's a fairly extensive Pi-Star Facebook group that addresses the issues with 4K transcoding. So there isn't going to be necessarily, although who knows what we may post a little bit later as we expand, access to the documents to 4K transcoding about Pi-Star. But apparently it's just ready to go. Pi-Star was configured by Pi-Star. And the Facebook group, which I don't have the URL for that. Maybe somebody might throw it up there, but on the shout box for those that are interested in connecting to to 4K transcoding using Pi-Star, which of course is just fine. Now, at this point, let's see. Boy, a lot of stuff's flying through the door here. Anyone have any questions thus far about what you've heard? We don't want to get into it too deep. We want to piecemeal out, so to speak. Not piecemeal, that's a bad word, but we want to divide up the more technical discussions over Thursdays and allow this to spread out and sink in because there's a lot involved here, and but it might be confusing to some. So, with that having been said, which probably makes no sense to anybody besides me, stations with questions, please. Yeah. Well, that went swimmingly well. So, XLX313, there's a dashboard up you can take a look at, and it shows you what the transcoding reflector is doing and who's linked up on Constellation, which is Module A, or in the QuadNet group, XRF757, the experimenter corner that is on Module B, and that comes in through XLX313 Bravo. The other modules on XLX313 are available, but as Bob explained, if you're not on a transcoding module, you're going to be talking, if you're on DMR to DMR, which you can do, or D-Star to D-Star. You're not going to have it. There isn't anything different about it. Now, I wanted to also spend some time about XLX357 that Bob mentioned, and I want to let him explain a bit why that is up and running and its purpose in the overall scheme of things. W6KD, go ahead.
Okay, Mike. Yeah, XLX 357 has been actually around for a while. It was running on a bargain basement cloud service in Canada, and not running that well because of the hosting service. But anyway, we took it, upgraded it to version 2, XLX version 2, and now we have it running in the Amazon cloud. It's not connected presently to anything else, so it's standalone. And because of that, it's kind of the intent is to provide really, it's probably more intended for DMR use because there are 72 available modules on D-Star on the Constellation reflectors between, and that's just counting XRF 002, 310, and 555. That's not even counting XLX 212 or 313 for that matter. So there's 72 D-Star modules available already. So we don't really need any more. So sort of the intent of 357 is to provide a standalone XLX reflector, predominantly focused on DMR because there's already plenty of infrastructure available for D-Star. It's standalone, so it's not linked to anything else. So if you want to have a private conversation, or it's not private, if you want to have a conversation off of the other DMR master servers, where more than likely it'll just be you and whoever else you're talking to, you're free to use it for that. And that's using XLX 357 as the master server, and then talk group 4001 through 4026. Those are all available and open for use. They don't have a transcoder, so you can't talk to D-Star to DMR and vice versa, but they do work quite well for DMR to DMR. So it's there and available, and maybe at some point we might actually connect some of the modules elsewhere, but for now it's standalone completely. Back to the net, W6KV.
All right, so for those of you who do not want your DMR traffic recorded by Grandmeister or otherwise made available, generally XLX 357 is there to keep it, well, of course it's not private because anyone can connect and listen, but you're certainly going to have a conversation if you want to have DMR to DMR chats that are not going anywhere else other than to the other station on that reflector. Now, Bob, you also mentioned, I might as well get all the air out of you that I can before we move on. You mentioned that the XLX 313 and 357 were upgraded to XLX version 2. And would you mind spending just a little bit of time helping us understand the significance of XLX reflector software version 2? If you want to take a break and run away and come back later, that's fine too. But I never let a station run away from the mic when they're around. W6KD, go ahead.
Sure. XLX version, I think they're on 1.4 before version 2 came out. It was a multi-protocol D-Star reflector, D-Star only. When I say multi-protocol, I mean D+, D extra, and DCS. XLXD is the program. We call them the XLX reflectors. The XLXD version 2 adds to that by adding DMR to the mix. So prior to version 2, you could connect up just fine using DCS, D extra, D plus, any of the D-Star protocols, and talk back and forth. You could have one guy connected to it as XRF 357, for example. Somebody else could be connected to XRF 357 alpha, for example. And somebody else could be connected to DCS 357 alpha, and they were talking to each other. It was just it's still the alpha module of the reflector. It's just you're getting in using a different protocol. Well, now XLXD version 2 allows DMR stations using the XLX as their master to talk back and forth to each other while they're on a particular, we call them talk groups in DMR. And talk group 4001 is the talk group that sits across the divide from module A. 4002, module B, all the way to 4026, which is module Z. And in absence of a transcoder, the stations will be able to see a dead carrier when somebody's on the other side. But the big thing is that these DMR guys now have the ability to not only use the infrastructure that we're providing to talk amongst each other, but an XLX reflector is easily deployed by individuals and small clubs and groups on a very inexpensive VPS server. So you can stand up your own DMR master for very, very little outlay and make it your club DMR reflector. And it brings to the table for DMR what we've had for a long time now with DXRFD, which is the software behind the X reflectors. And for less time, we've had the XLXD, but only on the D-Star side. So XLXD version 2 adds DMR to the mix, and it also resets. Anyway, it also adds the transcoding possibility to the mix too. But to do that requires a separate server running with the not inexpensive hardware running to do the transcoding. And so the link to the transcoder is also something built into XLXD version 2. But absent the transcoder, you still have DMR available for the first time. You have the ability to deploy a standalone DMR reflector on a very, very modest VPS type setup and set it up for yourself, your club, whatever. So that brings open source independence to the DMR side of things. Something we've enjoyed for some time now on the D-Star side. Back to the net, W6KD.
Yeah, N1DOT was additional.
Thank you, Bob. N1DOT, go ahead.
Yeah, what Bob didn't reflect on is the setup for the transcoder is quite a substantial outlay. Just to get a DVSI USB 3000 volt, they're running around $1,500 plus to get the AMBI device with the 12 chips in it. So they're quite substantial. It's quite a substantial outlay for whoever's doing this. The other thing is XLXD talks to AMBED, which is the AMBI server daemon. It can run on it can either run on the same box. It's best to run it on the same box, or it can be run at a remote site. But it's best that it's run on the same box. It's AMBED running with the D2XX FTDI driver. The FTDI driver, the D2XX driver, talks to the AMBI chips. Okay, and then AMBE daemon or AMBED daemon talks to the FTDI driver. Of course, that also talks to over port 10,100 to the XLX daemon, the XLX reflector daemon, to get on the more technical side of things, so people can understand what's happening on the back end. And it's like Bob said before, it's taking the AMBE audio, converting it to PCM, and then reconverting it into AMBE plus 2. But here's an interesting side note, okay? System Fusion Data Narrow uses the same vocoder that DMR does. It's also AMBE plus 2. It would not be that hard for them to code in System Fusion Data Narrow into the mix, because they use technically the same vocoder. This is why you can do Fusion to DMR and DMR to Fusion with an open spot, and it does not require an AMBI device, because the voice payload is never altered, only the header information.
All right, Ken, appreciate that. So let's take a pause and see if anyone has questions thus far about what you've heard. Stations, please key up.
N6H.
Well, just a minute. I am sorry about that. I had too many things being pushed around my desk and I didn't unkey. Let's try it again. If you keyed up, I didn't see you. So, stations, please key up. All right. Well, didn't get any response there. So I appreciate now in the the shout box, we've had the Facebook group URL for Pi-Star listed. Thank you. And in addition to N1DOT's description, K6KD, who apparently does not have laryngitis of the fingers, has posted some additional information. And then we have K6KD helping out with additional information. So take a look at the shout box to keep on top of the things that are going on. All right. So are there stations? I know that there's been a number of stations that have connected to the constellation on DMR using XLX 313. And if any of those stations who have had a chance to play with the 4K transcoding would like to give us their impressions, or would like to perhaps ask a question about something that didn't quite seem right to them, or they didn't understand, I haven't seen anybody have any difficulty, but your observations would be welcome, especially something new like this that is open to everyone to use. Stations, please key up. All right, no response there. So, feel free to put it to use. I don't think we need to say more about that. At this juncture, I don't have much more to talk about as far as 4K transcoding. As I said, we're going to get into a number of the technical subjects as we go through subsequent Thursdays and talk in more detail about how it works and what to expect and special circumstances and odd things that you might find it working that would not be normally consistent with D-Star, but frankly, I haven't seen anything much like that. I haven't not seen a call sign come through, and so as we put this to work and give it a chance to develop as a integral part of the Kings of Digital system, we're going to hopefully, if we find any bugs, take care of them right away. But yet, for all the time it's been up, the system hasn't broken, so I'll call for anyone who has any comments about 4K transcoding before we move on. Again, if you have any questions that about what you've heard or perhaps what you've read, and I do encourage everyone to read the postings in the current discussions folder in the no, it's not there. Doggone it, I'm losing words. There's too much going on in the Open DMR, XLX Reflector category, and you'll see some boards there that are good reading. And again, don't miss out on, if you're interested in this, going to the xrefl.boards.net, where there's just a ton of information posted there as well about 4K transcoding and how to go about using it. So anything final? That is comments, questions about 4K transcoding. Anything we missed? Let's take you now. Stations, please, Kia.
Yeah, I have one comment about the 4K transcoding from D-Star to DMR, number one. And I've also got a couple of questions about a THD74 Kenwood. I've got one on order, and I've been trying to figure some things out with it. I know I'm going to have to use a DR memory to do digital repeater operation. I had one other question. Maybe this is in relation to using the D74 with DTMF and the IRCDB gateway. Yeah, okay, so I'll stand by one and wait just to make sure there's no other traffic.
Again, stand by. We're having some doubling going on because you just hang out for a minute. All right, MDT, let's take your D-Star to DMR comment, and then let me see. There are apparently other stations that want to get in on 4K transcoding before we leave it, and then we'll take your the D74 questions right after that. MDT, go ahead.
Yeah, here's one thing I have noticed. There are some stations on D-Star that have not applied for a CCS7 or DMR ID. I have noticed that when those stations try to talk and they don't have a CCS7 DMR ID, and they're not listed in the DMR database, they try to talk on the D-Star side, I noticed the reflector puts in a dummy number. It's 88888888, and no audio comes through. You get no call sign come through, and you get no audio come through. Unless it can look you up, it doesn't let you through. I don't know if Bob can reflect on this. W6KD and 1DOT. I'll let you hand it over to him, Mike.
WB5E.
All right. Let's WB5EKU recognize. So W6KD, did you copy M1DOT's question? Do you wish to respond? Go ahead.
No, sorry, I got a sidebar conversation going on here in the shack. If you want to repeat it, I'll give it a run.
You want me to repeat, Mike?
Oh, okay, guys, hang on. Please don't start keying up and talking because you end up doubling with others. And just all you gotta do is quick key, and I'll recognize you and take you. Hang on, Ken. WB5EKU. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, WB5EKU. A couple things. Ken, please listen how to get into the network instead of keying up and then giving a whole triad of what you want to talk about. Just put your call out there, and Mike will come back to you because other people would like to get in also. So please do that. You don't have to put a subject line on your key up. Okay, that's been the policy of the roundtable for quite a while. Bob had found that problem. And he corrected that problem that you're talking about of stations that do not have DMR ID from DMR Mark, which is also a CCN7 number, but it's a DMR Mark registration number. He fixed that. I have seen many and heard many stations with 888888, and I've heard the audio. So maybe when it comes around to you, I think Bob's going to want to respond. So please be patient, Ken. I kind of think that maybe you should find out which stations are actually doing that and the problem that they're having. It could be a radio programming, but I know I have heard and seen stations do that because Bob actually spent a fair amount of time fixing that problem. N6HKH, WB5EKU, Granada Hills.
All right, well, let's check with Bob W6KD. The question is from N1DOT, we're a D-Star station without a DMR ID, calls it a CCS7 DMR ID, and thus is not in the DMR database. That results in a dummy number on the DMR side and no audio. Don contends WB5EKU that was fixed. What say you, W6KD? Go ahead.
Yeah, the modded version that we're running, modded by yours truly, it does a lookup. The software is written by Luke and John Luke does a lookup to see what your DMR ID is, and as written, if you don't have a DMR ID, it doesn't pass it to the other side. So what you'll get is an empty key up with no audio. I fixed that so that on the D-Star to DMR side of things, given that for you to be legally on the D-Star side, all you need is your call sign. You don't need any kind of a registration. You don't need to be registered with DMR Mark or whatever. So in absence of a registration in the database, it inserts a dummy DMR ID and does pass the audio to the other side. On ours, currently, it uses a dummy DMR ID of 888-8888. I have also been talking to John Luke, and John Luke is he's going to be putting a compile parameter in the next version of the software, so that sysops can either decide for themselves what dummy ID to use, or if to use a dummy ID at all. And ultimately, I think the right answer would be to register the reflectors just like we register repeaters now, and get a separate ID number assigned to the reflector, given that the reflector is actually generating a DMR stream, and it's, I think it would be better for the stream to at least have some identifying information that relates to, where it was generated. But currently, it's not a big deal because the DMR site is not linked to anything. You linked to 313 alpha, you set 313 as your DMR master and linked to talk group 4001, and on the DMR side, that doesn't go any further. On the D-Star side, it goes to whatever's linked and cross-linked, and in our case, 313A is linked to the constellation, so it's everywhere the constellation is. But on the DMR side, it doesn't get forwarded any further. So whatever the DMR ID is at this point doesn't matter because it's just a placeholder. It's just you have to put something into the DMR header. To pass the stream across so that the radio will recognize it, and so we just picked an unused number and used that. So that's the bottom line. And in the future, that'll be a programmable option for all of the sysops that use it.
All right, Bob, appreciate it. M1DOT, anything further?
Not on that subject, no. My question was, when programming up the D-Star radio for the D74, I know with the repeater you got to use the DR mode. Now, my question is, with ISDDB gateway, does the DTMF actually work in DV mode or D-Star mode? I mean, because I'd like to be able to do it like I do with my ICOM 92AD, and that's be able to send DTMF commands to IRCDDB gateway. I'm just curious if that also works with the D74.
Okay, D74 owners. What's the answer? Please, Kia.
N6MU.
And there's Craig in 6MUD. Go ahead.
Hey, good evening, Mike. Ken, it works exactly the same as an 91AD. So it'll pass DTMF on DV mode or DV repeater mode, doesn't matter. But yeah, it'll work exactly the same as your 91 or 92 AD there. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Craig. M1DOT, there you go. So don't cancel that order. M1DOT, go ahead.
Oh no, I like the radio. I like the radio for everything else that they have included besides D-Star. Okay, ICOM kind of shot themselves in the foot with their plus two routing mode, which is a joke. They shot themselves in the foot when they got rid of the 12-digit, the 16-digit keypad. So what other choices do you have if you want a modern radio? The only thing I find is you got to use DV mode for simplex for hotspots, and you got to use DR mode and add the repeater and all the gateway information and everything else, just like you would with the ICOM, in order to use the digital repeater part of it. Because I've got a full D-Star repeater here running MMDVM. With DMR gateway, YSF gateway, P25 gateway, IRCDB gateway. I've got the whole thing running on a DL1X, and I don't like to enter. I don't like to enter commands. I don't like to use your hull unless absolutely possible. That's why I went for the D74. That's why I just wanted a confirmation of my question, and that's going to answer a lot of questions because it's going to simplify a lot of programming. Because the other gateway I got in town that I also maintain that I'm the admin for, which is the club's D-Star, also uses DTMF linking. So as long as I got a radio with full 12-digit keypad, the problem is I got two 92 ADs, Mike, that have two broken push-to-talk buttons. Because ICOM in their infinite wisdom charges you $500 radios, and they put $1.50 switch in for the push-to-talk that gives out. So I've got two 92 ADs that have to go back. I've got to use that big honking speaker mic with a GPS in it, which is getting to be a real pain in the ass. So I'm going to have to send both radios back to get them both fixed. And that's going to be a pain in the butt. So I decided to make sure I had something to keep me on the air with D-Star.
Well, I don't know how you're going to live with yourself under those certain circumstances. You can't. Well, you need everybody needs at least one D-Star radio. I just can't imagine not having at least one. Well, good luck with that, and when you get the E74 in, let us know what you think of it. You know, we've had people that have said great things and others that, you know, thought it wasn't quite the radio they expected it to be, but generally speaking, there haven't been many returns, as I understand. So, all right. Anybody with any further questions or comments on 4K transcoding? I want to make sure that those who have been waiting to key up after we got comments done have a chance to do so. Let's take you now. Please key in. And while K6KD is unable to speak, his fingers have been doing the talking, and he importantly emphasizes that the feature where audio is passed through, even though the D-Star user does not have a DMR or CCS7 ID, it's the same thing, that the audio is heard. But this feature, along with some other features, which we'll talk about in subsequent Thursdays, is not part of the general distribution of the transcoding software. And, you know, the developers, as John posts in the shop box, they hope to include that in the distribution, but, you know, Bob W6KD has, in the software side of 4K transcoding, implemented a number of features that are unique to Kings of Digital, and that's why we call it 4K transcoding as opposed to just plain transcoding, or however you want to relate that. All right, so let's see if anyone has any questions generally. Is there something we blew through that you'd like to talk about before we move on? I'm particularly interested, quite frankly, to hear any reports about any volunteers that responded to Hurricane Irma, and what your experiences were, if any, if you were involved in any of the amateur radio emergency service response. But we'll take comments of a general nature or questions of a specific nature now before we press on through the remainder of tonight's Thursday Night D-Star Roundtable with stations. Please key up.
KE0AYJ.
KE0AY.
Hey, Andy, I'm glad you decided to key up. I was kind of hoping you'd do so to start this off. Of course, you may be the only one that, you know, went over there and actually did something, but thanks for being with us. KE0AYJ, go ahead.
Yeah, we went down, and like I said, like last time I believe I talked to you, was down in Texas. Then I graduated, so to speak, moved over to the real mess that was over in Florida. Did a few odds and ends there, and started helping some people out and establishing rally points, basically, and get people situated by groups and stuff, and you know, so everybody know who they are and where they can go. The place was really, really packed with residents from Florida trying to get away, and they had their motorhomes and camper trailers and cars and pickups, and they were living in those things with every possible thing they could cram into them that were valuable. Let me break. And took back off and started coming back home because I got notified by FEMA to possibly available for dispatch. On the way home, I got diverted. They dispatched me over the radio, over the phone, I should say, to meet up outside Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I was about 200 miles from there on the way home, so it was a little bit of a diversion. Met up there and went to the backside and started rallying federal supplies together, and operators and trucks and things like that started showing up. So 140 47 double trailer semis and 4 C-130 Hercules fully loaded. Got those manifested, inventoried, and shipped out. They were prepackaged on Connexes and ready to go. So we got those loaded and got them out. C-130s each transported a Connex and a VSAT terminal down. So we got that out. And then from there I was released and allowed to come back up here to Indiana and be on standby and another break. Allowed to be on standby again and possibly having to go back down. I thought, oh boy, started cleaning up and everything. And 2 hours later they dispatched me to go up to Indianapolis. And of all things, there was a C-5A sitting there. And I didn't expect to see one of those ever again. And loaded up 4 VSAT terminals with Stingrays on them to go down the special device they use for cell phone stuff. But loaded those up and sent it on its merry way. And then came home, thought I'd rest and relax, and then Valerie Hotsfield called me, NV9L from Ham Nation, wanted to know if I'd come over to her place, and her and Jerry's place, and do an interview with Ham Nation. So I got back about 2:30 this morning, and completely worn out, saturated. I don't know what else I can do, but I'm still on standby. So what else can I tell you? It's total devastation down there. Went clear down to the tip. Went clear down to the tip, and there was nothing left. It looks like nobody had ever been there. Houses are gone. Any sign of infrastructure is gone. Lines, telephone poles, conduit housings, cable TV underground, all gone. Completely blank. Nothing there. What else can I tell you?
Yeah, it's been painfully obvious from some of the photos and video footage that we've been seeing on the news. It's just amazing. N6XDX, welcome to the roundtable. Go ahead.
N6XDX, my apologies. I was moving the radio and hit the push to talk. So continue on. Thank you. N6XDX, back to that. VE7KH is testing.
VE7KH recognized. All right, N6 XDX, you did just the right thing. Everyone should know if you do an inadvertent key up or otherwise transmit when you weren't looking, that is, your device did it without your permission, just let me know and I'll take you off the list, no problem. VE7KH, I hope you didn't say you were testing. I hope instead you wanted to say something for the roundtable. We have you in there. Welcome. Go ahead. VE7KH, I got you here on the screen. It's your turn. Go ahead. All right, there. Inadvertent or otherwise, no response. If you get a fix and you do want to participate, just key back up again. We do not quick key here, so you could get in. All right, stations that want to relate a story or were involved in or have a comment about amateur radio's response and their actual involvement with Hurricane Irma's communications, please key up.
W6CJ.
W6CJX. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
Well, good evening, Mike. W6TJX here from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My last night out here in the Midwest, heading back tomorrow on the plane back to LA. And I was just going to mention, I did the Tuesday night D-Star TechNet on 12 Alpha the other night, and I was quite surprised at how many check-ins I had from the Florida area. Got some various reports from probably as far down as Orlando. I think there was a few others, but they were all pretty much north, like Jacksonville, and then I got a few from further up north. I think North Carolina, I had a couple, or one from South Carolina, which really just had some major storms coming through, which you can imagine from a hurricane of that size, and even when it's downsized, it's still going to be quite the storm. So, but I thought that was interesting. I was actually going to call out to see if there was, just like you did there, anybody affected, or how was ham radio used. But they have got a lot of good comments about it, and you know, the different various cities that have a lot of hams in it. They were very active, so I thought that was great. It really brings the ham radio into the picture, of course, when the disasters do come in. So everything's good here, Mike. Just wanted to say hi. Just kind of got in and put the net on, so I wanted to jump in and say hello and say hi from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I'll send it back to net, and I'll be listening through. I'll be out here. W6BJX, back to next call.
K6FED.
K6FED recognized. Well, I appreciate you, Bob. Yeah, that's pretty interesting that you would have stations checking in. I've been scouring a lot of the postings and the Aries and ARRL stuff, trying to get a handle on what amateur radio contributed, or how they did, to Hurricane Irma. And, you know, it seems to be kind of a mixed bag. There wasn't a loss of communications except in the Keys. Cell phone service loss was fairly quickly remedied, and most of the amateur radio was to support the Red Cross, passing traffic back and forth. And then there was some discussion about, let me find it again here. There was a couple of articles that I pulled aside. But in any event, it was, you know, mostly observe and report kind of stuff. It seems that they actually supplanted, or provided additional communications capabilities in Irma, which didn't seem to be quite the case with Harvey. But, you know, again, it was almost all HF work. And interestingly, there's a comment in today's ARRL letter that reads as follows: as if Earth's weather was not bad enough already, an X-class solar flare at around midday on Sunday, September 10th, hobbled the HF bands. And they go on to describe it as a widespread communication blackout that lasted for nearly 3 hours and could not have happened at a worse time, quoting the source. So they had to work around her. It wasn't exactly clear how that occurred, but solar flares pretty much took out most of the Aries communications capabilities, because it's probably 95% HF. All right. K6FED, welcome. Go ahead.
N6HKH in the group. Mike, I monitored a lot of the traffic on the repeaters in Miami during the storm, and I thought that those guys did a yeoman's job. I can't tell you exactly which repeaters because I was selecting them off of the D-Star user group .org website, but they were coordinating buses and equipment movements using D-Star during the heaviness of the storm. Over.
Well, as you can tell, I missed out on that, although I did hear some comments, because I was scattering around the bands a bit. So what was it that they were doing? How are they helping in the efforts there? Can you relate generally the type of communications that you heard on the repeaters? And I'm glad to hear those things were up and running. Go ahead.
Well, what I heard was they were asking if they needed buses in a specific location, and then they dispatch a runner, and listening to the conversation, the runner would come back and say, yes, can we get some buses at this particular location? At the time, that was some of the general traffic, and then they were talking about just little pieces of equipment. But it was primarily just trying to get buses in a specific place so that they can move people from one place to another.
And this included some D-Star reflectors in addition to the analog repeaters. Did I get that right? Frank, go ahead.
This was primarily on the D-Star repeaters. You go to the usergroup.org and it'll tell you which repeaters are active. So I just chose one that was in the Miami area. So it was a D-Star repeater that they were actually using, and as usual, the audio comes in over the internet. Over.
Yeah. So, well, it's just odd that they weren't on a reflector, but whatever works. Well, I appreciate knowing that, Frank. I was getting depressed. Stations with comments concerning amateur radio and Irma, please be up.
K6F.
I have WD6FOX and K6FED again. WD6FOX. Thanks for being with us. Go ahead. I have a key up from WD6FOX. It's your turn. Go ahead. All right. Well, if it's an inadvertent key up, just let me know. I'm happy to take you off the list. Everybody does it, including me. It just happens here. Sometimes certain hotspots just get out of control. Despite threatening them, they transmit on their own. And, that explanation is as good as any, as opposed to the dog eating your hotspot and causing it to transmit. If you wanted to get in and just couldn't, fix it and come back. K6FED. Go ahead.
Yes, Mike. I only have one last comment to go with the last transmission, which is that as hams, if we don't figure out a way to show them that we can be useful in those EOCs, we just better get used to asking them how do they want their coffee.
Oh, absolutely. I and this has been said many times as we discussed EMCOM, that if you don't make yourself known and don't tell them the capabilities that you have, they won't be used, or you won't be used by them. And if you think that there's a local areas or RACES or other amateur radio emergency response group that is, surrounded this public safety agency and they're not into digital, I would just sidestep them and, say, hey, look, maybe you or your guys don't know, but there's a lot more to what we do as amateurs than just, firing up tubes and we're pushing up, long wire antennas and towers. And tell them about digital, because I believe, as others actually, there are some in ARRL and the emergency response community who believe that if ARES does not immediately get up to speed with digital and go in the direction that public safety communications are going, they're going to be left in the dust. And I don't think that's what they want. So I'm behind you 100%. Station, please, Kia.
KE08.
KE0AYJ, go ahead.
Well, I was probably one of the first people to get into the area, I think, that was listening from outside of the area with D-Star and Analog and everything. Like he said, like was mentioned here just a few minutes ago, a lot of traffic being passed over the Fort Lauderdale repeaters and Miami repeaters. Tons of it. As a matter of fact, D-Star point-to-point was in use and repeater-wise. And 60 Charlie, for some reason, was being used. And they were just packed in there big time, passing traffic. I kept a total count, being logistics with FEMA, and kept a total count of the buses that were garnished, basically, under contract to go down there. There were 13,000 transportation buses put into the area, all from the National Guard, Air Force, and Federal Reserve Federal Reserve depots to go on down there and get in that. And they put them in there very early and started transporting. They took them as far north as Jacksonville, and from there they were bussed even further north, or to a rally point and intercept point where family members could pick them up and meet them and take them to their house or whatever. But yeah, it was extensive use of transportation. Every metropolitan area had an Aries group and Racy's group running, and some of them were so crowded they had to switch to mobile HF rigs on it because they couldn't get a word in edgewise. But yeah, it was very extensive for the hams. A lot of probably not direct exposure to the public or the media or anything, but every one of them were jam-packed full of everything. EOCs, EMA offices, and city halls and fire departments had ham radio operators crammed in there with all sorts of stuff strung up everywhere.
Well, I appreciate you updating the report. I didn't quite catch the D-Star activity that was going on. And, isn't it odd, though, in all of the press releases and news updates from Aries, ARRL, and others, not one word is mentioned about digital communication, other than that VoIP net. But they use Echolink and I think All-Star. But, as far as the D-Star infrastructure or any other, let's just stick with D-Star for now. Not one mention, not one word. Thank you for helping us out to, believe that there's a place for D-Star in this sort of thing. Station, please key up. All right, nothing seen or heard. Well, we're going to talk more about MCOM and hopefully have some people to help us out that you normally wouldn't hear from. Once I think the hurricane season is over with, I don't think we're going to get a lot of free time from these folks, nor should we. Let me just see if W4WWM is with us. Will, are you around?
I sure am. I just checked in. I just got back in and sit down in the chair here in the shack and just heard the gentleman speak about some of the digital traffic down there, and I think that was wonderful. Definitely was on my mind, and of course, I just think that we some kind of way need to be introduced to the public, or some of those news agencies that get all the words out, so we can really be known. Because, like I say, nobody really knew that there were amateur operations out there except for the people who was operating. But anyway, back to you, Mike. Just thought I'll pop in here and just walk in the door and see what was going on. W4WW.
Well, do you need a little bit more time before I call on you to talk about QuadNet?
Oh no, we could go right now. It's probably the better time than any other time. And have at it. Shoot questions at, and we'll keep it as brief as possible. W4WW.
All right, appreciate it. Well, it's not so much questions. It's more of maybe having you, maybe having a terrible language. The reason why I wanted to perhaps have a discussion about QuadNet, let people know what it is. I'm not sure that everybody does understand, what is QuadNet and what it does for us. And the reason is because the XLX313 Bravo module connects to the XRF757, and which module B through XLX313, which is talk group 4002, is linked to the XRF757 and the QuadNet. And there's information you can get on it, but I thought, given your vague familiarity with QuadNet, that you could just tell us what QuadNet is and what it does and why we should care about QuadNet, since it's there on one of the transcoding channels. Can you do that for us? W4WWM. Go ahead.
Sure. Actually, the originality of QuadNet began back in 2012, and it's been running ever since. We started out with 2 servers, and then we started out with 4, so then we named it QuadNet. But of course, the network is nothing more than a network for ham radio operators to have a network that they can use their D-Star. It was built for D-Star for those who like to experiment and run what we see now are the homebrew modes. So we seen that because we were long time rivals of the U.S. Trust, and the U.S. Trust did not want anything such as any type of homebrew system on their network. Actually, there's some history there, lots of history, but we won't go into it. But so we came to mind to build the QuadNet, and the QuadNet does not require any like the U.S. Trust does not require any registration or a password. We deem so that your ham license is just authorize you to operate. We have at least 7 admin operators or system managers that constantly monitor the QuadNet, and if we do find an invalid call sign at any given time, just check every single day in all times of the day, even the early mornings. Because we are actually, the team is actually spread across the United States. There's a total of 6 servers, now 5 servers, and the operators are spread from Seattle, Washington, all the way Wisconsin, Madison, and Alabama, myself, as well as Michigan. So we're all over the place, and we did have an affiliate there in the Northeast, but that we had 2 affiliates in the Northeast, but they retired from the QuadNet. But anyway, QuadNet is nothing more than the RCDDB network, built a little slightly different than the one that you see that's from Europe. Or Group 1, Group 2, which is actually has an extension here in the United States, but QuadNet is strictly a USA nation network built basically RCDDB, and we require no password, no need for like the Shiny Box or the ICOM system to have a registration for a particular call sign, anything like that. To run it, you can run it with your natural call sign or your repeated call sign. So it's just the network built for routing and linking, and you can do both. W4.
All right, I got it's for both routing and linking, and you can do both. Did you unkey at that point? W4 WWM, go ahead.
I sure did, just to give a break. And the key factor is it only take a person or an operator about 5 minutes or less if they understand the gateway. They can be on and operating. So we saw the vision where we didn't want the ham operators to worry about taking a week, 3 days, or a week and 2 days, or whatever to get on the network due to registration. And so that was one of the reasons we wanted the experimental to have its go at it. And that was another term that was going from us, the experimental network. So therefore the network began, and it's been growing ever since. We have about right now approximately it's over 1,000 users on the network now. And as I said earlier, the network is basically for experimenters who enjoy the D-Star application. And we got linking and routing and StarNet group routing. And basically it's a system for one to, build the systems and get up and running in less than 5 minutes. They can be in contact with groups like us. W4 WWM. Back to you, Mike.
Alrighty, so does it require special software? Do you have to install an image on a hotspot? And how do you initiate a transmission, or how do you connect to or route to a QuadNet node? Assuming that, let's just say you're on D-Star and you decide, well, I'm going to go check out one of the QuadNet servers. Anything different, special, unique, needed to do that? Go ahead.
Actually, the type of gateways that can be used actually are ICOM gateways, provided they have the software for running on the QuadNet IRC-DTV network. And you can also use Jonathan's gateway, G4QLX. There's also another gateway that everyone may have forgotten about. Actually, the original gateway that we use on the system is also G2 IRC-DTV, which was built initially by Scott, KI4LKF. That gateway is still around, and but it says the code on that gateway has been modified and for operation on the QuadNet as well. And one of our admins actually took that code and he maintains that code for the G2 IRC-DTV gateway, which is another form of a experimental system. So those can be used as hotspots or repeaters, any of those programs I just mentioned. And yes, indeed, any of the newer form systems as well can be used as a hotspot or on the QuadNet. There's one particular IP that needs to be checked in, and a lot of people are probably using QuadNet and don't even know it. And all you gotta do is just stick in this one IP. It might be familiar to some. It's called rr.openquad.net. If they're using that IP address within their gateway system, they're actually running on the QuadNet. So actually, quite a few are running the QuadNet, don't even know it. W4WW.
Well, there's nothing like running into a QuadNet and not knowing that you're on a QuadNet. All right. Anyone have any questions about QuadNet? I realize this is a brief overview, and many of you may know it intimately, and others may be wondering, what does it mean for me? But I thought I'd ask Will, who is, part of the development team for QuadNet, to talk briefly about it, since that's at the other end of XRF 757. So, anyone with any questions or anyone with further comments about QuadNet, we'll take you now. Please key up. Alrighty, nothing seen or heard. Well, Will, I appreciate taking the time, and I know you just blew into the shack, and so thanks for helping us out with that. And we'll no doubt be talking about QuadNet some more. And if there's maybe a good document that describes the system, feel free to post it in the shout box with a link if you like, so stations that wish to investigate further may do so. Of course, it's easy if you want to get on XRF 757 and say, hey, where are you QuadNet guys? What's going on? And see what kind of response you get, although I'd be a bit more polite. All right, this is the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable. Let's take a break to see where we're at and call for stations who have questions or topics or things they wish to have discussed, or if you heard something earlier tonight and remain puzzled by it. Of course, I don't know why you didn't key up sooner, but that's beside the point. So we'll kind of open it up to see what it is that is on your mind. Station, please key up.
W4WW.
W4WWM. Go ahead.
Yeah, I also wanted to add about that link. The link is already posted, and all you got to do right there in your box is posted already. All you got to do is click on that box, that link that I've seen posted in the one on the, I don't know if it's the round table or the X reflector. I think both of them are the same. I'm still getting used to that, but the link is there, and all you got to do is click on that, and I guess I can put it in the discussion box or the shout box, and so the link will be all over the place. And once you click on that link, it takes you right directly to the Open QuadNet page there with all the information on it. And not only that, you guys use the board here. We use an ROC program that you can also check into, as well as a TeamSpeak conference call when we want to do troubleshooting. That just requires a small password and a user's name, but that information is provided. And other people, so the information concerning QuadNet is out there tremendously. You can just do a Google on QuadNet, and you'll see it right away, and it'll take you right to the site. And you can read all the information you want about the QuadNet that's posted. W4WW. Back to you, Mike. Why don't you go through with the question?
Okay, well, I appreciate. Yeah, there's no doubt that somewhere on the Roundtable forum board is the link to QuadNet, and but I just haven't seen it. And if you don't want to post it, no problem. I don't mind posting it when I get a chance a little bit later. Just for those that want to know more. In1 DOT, go ahead.
Yeah, my question for Will. It's been a while since I talked with you, Will. Is there a specific place where they list where the STN groups are, and which ones are crossed over and where they're crossed over to? That's what I've been unable to find.
No, we didn't. We at one time, as you know, we did have a list of STN. But I just got that question by one. Just to get some communication going, and we'll go ahead and try to get a list established. You know, all those STNs, whatever they want to name them, on a list. So no, we don't have a current list, and it's not, as you know, it's not, especially Ken, it's not hard to create. We can create these special lists for STNs. STNs are StarNet route groups that you could route to and have a group just like you have on the reflector. Better yet, those DMR guys do the same thing. When you go to a talk group, you're actually routing to a talk group. Anyway, Kent, I hope that answers your question, and we could. It's a second request, so we, all in due time, we can create that list for the STN. We do have a two-channel bridge on ours, actually, that you can run STN 757A and STN 738B. And if you route to those, you can talk to the guys on Group 1, Group 2 on that. But as far as the list is concerned, as Ken stated in on DOT, long time knowing Ken, we had a small list at one time, and we knew it was going to grow, but there's quite a few out there, so yes, it's something we need to look into. W4WW, back to net.
Anyone DOT any further? Go ahead.
Yeah, as you know, Mike, and Will, I've been around since Scott created the D-StarNet, and I came on board with the StarNet. We run the Jonathan software off and on. Well, now I've got a full DL1 with the MMDVM and all the attachments here running in the house. Finally brought that online in addition to the open spot. So I've been working out the bugs, and I might activate part of it. I've also got a Kenwood radio coming in that I'm going to be programming up just to use on D-Star because I get tired of the ICOM non-quality. I got two 92 ADs that both push the talk buttons went bad. And I'm going to have to put them in a box and send them to ICOM and say, fix them. Then I got to decide whether I want to sell one of them or both. It's just getting to the point where the ICOM equipment is starting to annoy me. So I've got to go through a learning curve with the D74 in a couple of days. I'm on DOT.
Well, let us know how it works out. All right, stations. Please speed up.
Yes, I would like to know, is there a particular mode, DMR, D-Star? What is the consistency between the two? And is one better than the other? I'm assuming it's like a 50-50, but I'm not sure. And then I've also heard about other devices like the OpenSpot. And is there an answer all for all the different modes like D-Star, DMR, and all the other modes?
KD6ULE, I didn't see you key up, and I just heard you starting to talk. So here we need to have you key up. You can quick key. You don't have to talk, and then I'll recognize you, and we'll be able to get your complete question. So let's start this over. You had several questions, I think. Let's take them one at a time. Give us your first one, KD6ULE. Go ahead.
Roger that. This is KD6ULE in Southern California, right around the San Bernardino area. And I've been doing all types of D-Star stuff, and I have other ham friends who seem to be doing D-Star, All-Star, DMR. And so the question most of the question I asked one was about, is one better than the other? Because they're trying to tell me after we bought D-Star equipment that DMR is more popular, and also what other devices that could you do almost like DMR D-Star, and what other remotes are like the Open Spot or whatever they call them. I heard there's more than, I hear people saying Open Shot, Open Spot. I believe it's Open Spot. But anyway, if you can, answer those. Thank you, Bob.
Well, I'm not quite sure how to proceed because you're asking some broad general questions that place one mode in competition with the other, and I'm not quite sure that that's an appropriate thing to do because at this stage, if you've been listening, there really isn't much competition left between DMR and D-Star given transcoding, but I'll ask if any stations wish to comment on your question. Stations, please tee up.
W4WW.
I have N1DOT and W4WWM. First to N1DOT, go ahead.
Well, one of the things that's making DMR take off is the advent of the Brandmeister network and the freedom of the routing that they allow you to do. Well, the other thing that's causing DMR to take off is one repeater can have two conversations because they divide the channel into two time slots. That's one advantage to DMR. And the fact that the talk groups can be dynamically linked and dynamically unlinked. So you can have a repeater, you can have several talk groups feeding in at the same time. And they can all be linked, and whichever one comes active becomes the dominant one. So there's different modes to it. The other thing is that's making these DMR take off is it's very, very affordable to the average ham. Your typical D-Star radio is over $400 typically. Okay, so it's an expensive mode to get into D-Star. The Fusion is the next least expensive mode because they got the $200 dual band for Fusion. But that's separated into a couple of different islands between the YSF network and the YSF network and the YSX network. YSX tends to get expensive because it's hard to get into. You got to buy all specialized Yaesu equipment. Now DMR, on the other hand, you can buy a $219 dual bander called a Retibus RT82 or an MD2017. It's based on a commercial mentality, so you got to program a code block. But you can also buy single band units like an MD380, put modified firmware on them, and they run between $80 and $90, depending whether you get the version with GPS or without GPS. Only $10 difference for the GPS model. So that's what's making DMR take off because of the cheap Chinese radios. You can get into DMR for what you could buy one D-Star radio. You could probably buy 3 DMR radios for about approximately the same cost. And one DOT, so that's what's making it attractive to hams.
All right, Ken, appreciate it. W4WWM, go ahead.
Yeah, well, Ken did a very good job, and my biggest contribution to this is just that the biggest difference is the cost of the radios. I mean, I've heard for years and years when D-Star came out, the price of D-Star radio was just astronomical, and that is what kept a lot of the operators out of D-Star. But when DMR came along, and you'll be able to get some of these Chinese-made radios, and some of them are very good. Some of them work excellent for the mode, and they're at more than reasonable prices. So that's probably was the biggest, and of course, TDMA, as Ken put it, you got the slices of the spectrum you can on the frequency that you can talk on. But all in all, that's probably the reason more than anything that they're saying DMR. It's a new product. Yes, indeed, Grandmaster have brought some light, but there's some other lights to Grandmaster as well. You got to be aware of. But now, what makes it so good nowadays, it doesn't matter what radio you buy, especially when you're saying D-Star versus DMR, because we got transcoding going on now. And before we know it, there's going to be a lot of transcoding service. And what that means, it doesn't matter whether you have a DMR radio or a D-Star radio, you guys can still talk. And that's another question for the net controller. Do we have any DMR stations in here tonight once we turn it back over to you? I was just wondering if the transcoder is in operation right now. But that's my 2 cents worth, and we'll put it back to the net controller, W4WW.
N1 DOT, MMDVM.
Well, yeah, M1DOT, exactly. W4WWM, thank you. And I think Will was really hitting on it's not so much which system is better. It's really more of which radio do you like, because you can be on D-Star now and talk on DMR, and you can be on DMR and talk on D-Star. You know, as time goes by, I suspect that 4K transcoding will include other digital modes, although, you know, I'm not a big fan of Fusion, but it's out there. But, you know, MMDVM changes the game. Do you agree, Ken? N1DOT, go ahead.
Yes, I do, Mike. I got a DL1X here. It was primarily designed for Fusion and analog. I attached it to a Raspberry Pi and an MMDVM modem with a DO. Okay, and I'm running the Pi-Star image, which makes it very easy to configure. And I've got a quad mode machine. The only mode I don't have a radio for is P25, but it's active. It's in there and it's active. I'm on DMR right now. I could have just as well come on DMR with a BlueStack, using BlueDV for Windows or BlueDV for Android. I could have just as well come on the XLX reflector using the OpenSpot, using the MMDVM protocol on the OpenSpot using the DMR connector. But right now I just decided to come in with a full duplex repeater using MMDVM host. To answer your question, Will, I am on DMR.
All right, Ken, thanks. Yeah, and I was going to say, Will, until I forgot, Ken reminded me. Yeah, no, 4K transcoding is operating right now. The dashboard is up, and there's a number of stations connected from DMR, and I suspect there have been a number of stations that have talked on DMR. I know WB5EKU did, and of course, you know, guys go back and forth. They say, hey, you know, I'll talk on D-Star, listen on my DMR in my ear, and go, you know, they're trying to see, does it really work this way? Is there going to be a difference? Am I going to have a bunch of beeping and blapping coming in because it's D-Star on the other side, and they're finding out that, hey, it all sounds the same. All right, anybody with anything further for Greg? And I don't want to get into a debate over ultimately which system is best. I don't really think, and especially in light of Ken's and Will's comments, that really isn't the point. Nevertheless, anybody have anything else before we move on? Please key up. All right, as you've seen or heard, I appreciate N7TAE posting the QuadNet. Hey, he even created a live link. Ta-da! Very good. And an interesting note that, well, he's part of the programmer of the QuadNet team. Who knew? Well, I'm glad he's with us, and feel free to brag about what you do. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And of course, John is going berserk because he can't talk. It's like having duct tape on his mouth, but not on his hands, although maybe we should get a rope out. Yeah, I'm just teasing, but I appreciate contributions everybody has had thus far to the Shout Box. All right, we were exploring an open topic area, and I'm not sure that we cleared all the stations who had questions of an open nature that is not specifically tied to anything you've heard thus far, but you're more than welcome to ask questions if you now have one about something you heard. So I don't have any more stations on my list, and that's just not acceptable. Station, please key up. Well, nothing seen or heard. I am going to put off for probably maybe the next Thursday or one of the other Thursdays a discussion on the network performance metrics based on the article that John K6KD posted. And I know that W6KD is just chomping at the bit to talk about jitter, but I think perhaps we should put that off for a bit. Although somebody just wants to discuss it, I guess we could do that. And at this juncture, I don't have anything else. So, even though it's just a little bit after 9 and we've been running a little bit more than 2 hours, I still would like to see if there's anything anyone would like to talk about, or if you have a question, given that it is possible that this edition of the Thursday Night D-Star Roundtable may come to a close. And I say may, meaning that we don't close down as long as there are stations who have something to talk about, well, related to what we do here, of course. And I know you're out there. It's just a matter of getting you to key up. So station, please key up now.
W4WWM.
W4WWM, go ahead.
Okay, I really appreciate you holding it, and I just came in late, but definitely can't let this time go without putting out a big thank you there for one of our super admins there, actually Tom N7TAE. I would definitely love for Tom to jump on here and speak about the G2 that he's been maintaining, as well as the QuadNet, the QuadBot. Just briefly, if you can, really let the guys know that Tom is a great asset to the team here, and we really appreciate if he could just come in and say hello to the net net controller, W4WW.
W.
Well, Will, this is what happens when you don't listen to the roundtable from the very beginning, because you'll never guess who I called on with relation to a post that he made concerning the G2 IRC-DTV software that he's been working on to update and or replace Scott Larson's original software, and it was Tom. But I don't have a problem in asking Tom if he has any further comments about QuadNet, or if he has anything else to contribute to the roundtable. We'll see, just because you asked. So it's 7TAE. Well, you gonna take the bait or not? Go ahead.
Sure, I will. I just really enjoyed my experience working on the Open Quad team, the QuadNet team. It's a great bunch of guys, very knowledgeable. I wish I was half as smart as most of these guys on this team, and I've had a very small part in it. I'm in charge of the bot software, which is a tiny, tiny little program that just passes messages out to the various things that are connected to the network. It had some serious problems when I came on the team, and I fixed those, and I'm happy to say that it all worked out very well. But it's been a lot of fun. But I think by far the most important thing about my interaction is just working with the guys on the QuadNet team. They're really a great bunch of guys. Back to Net Control N7TAE.
All right, Tom, we appreciate that, and thanks for being with us. Your comments are really appreciated. So, we're back around to where I have nobody to call on, and that's depressing. Station, please key up. Anything further for the roundtable before we bring it to a close? If you're sitting on your hands, you got to pull one out to grab the mic. Stations, please key up. All right, well, without further objection or violent reaction on anyone's part, we're going to bring this edition of the Thursday Night D-Star Roundtable to a close. I want to thank every station who participated, because without your participation, there would be no roundtable. Now, you know we have more nets than just this one. There's the 100 watts on a wire net on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, that's 000 UTC. And the D-Star Users Group net meets here on the Constellation Saturdays, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, that's 000 UTC. Look for VE6DV, your net control for both nets. The constellation of repeaters, or reflectors, why would I say repeaters? Actually, that does say repeaters. That's not right. I'm going to have to fire the person who wrote the script, for heaven's sake. The constellation of reflectors is open 24/7, and feel free to come on over, chat with us, especially if your favorite homebrew or home repeater or reflector isn't cutting the mustard for you. For those of you who wish to try out 4K 4K transcoding, please feel free to do so. There's usually someone around to answer questions if you have any. There's lots of documentation all over the place to help you out to get started. And it really isn't that big of a deal. If you have DMR radio and you've been on DMR before, coming in on XLX 313 and then out into the constellation and checking it out really is no big to do. It's only those stations that have no experience with DMR that buy a DMR radio who might need a little bit of help, especially in understanding what this talk group business is all about, but it's not that difficult. So come on over and chat with us anytime you like. The Shopbox history will be, we'll be cleaning up the Shopbox from beginning to end, moving into the Shopbox history shortly after the net closes. The podcast of this net is usually available by Friday mornings, although I've heard that it's sometimes up earlier than that, but, don't put any money down on that. And I think that's all I have for tonight. And I'm starting to get the laryngitis. Laryngitis, but my throat is wearing out, and only because of the sympathy for K6KD, who hopefully will be back on the air very shortly. So, without further ado, I'm going to take a break. I'll be back here later on, and certainly throughout the rest of the week. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to talking to you on D-Star, N6HKH. Good night. All right, I know I timed out. Good night, everybody. N6HK.